This week we'll work on the Challenge Yourself Access 6.3 project. This project explores advanced forms. So for this project we'll modify a form and we'll add some buttons, some controls, an image, and a few other tasks. We'll also create a navigation form as one of the last steps, so we'll get a good feel for some different modifications to advanced forms. So if you haven't already, you'll want to go ahead and download your start file. And this week we also have a resource file that you'll need to download and save it to your device. Once you have those downloaded and you've enabled the Access database, we'll start with step 3, which is modify the new product data entry form to make it a data entry form. So right now we have it named a data entry form, but we have it set up to not allow a user to enter data. So we want to change that. So when we double click the form in the navigation pane, it opens it in form view. We want to switch that view to design view so we can make the changes. Now your property sheet may have opened by default. If it didn't, make sure you're on the Form Design Tools tab, the Design tab, and over in the Tools group we want to click on Property Sheet. So to make this a data entry only form, we want to go to the Data tab, and then when we scroll through those lists of properties, we want to find data entry. So right now it's set to no. We want to change that to yes. Now whomever's entering data in this database, they'll be able to add records from this form. The next thing it wants us to do, so we need to have the property sheet open still, we want to hide the form navigation buttons. So real quick, I'll show you. If I switch to form view, we have the navigation buttons here at the bottom. So if we go back to design view and we go to the format tab and we look at navigation buttons, we'll scroll down to navigation buttons and we want to change that to no. And then if I go back to form view, notice that those navigation buttons are no longer here. And so we'll add a new way to navigate between records in this form. So we want to add a command button. So this is how we'll actually navigate now. So I want to switch back to form or design view. And it wants us to add a command button to the lower right corner of the form details section to add a new record. So when we add a control, or a command button, which is a control, we have the option in the Form Design Tools Design tab, and there's a whole series of different controls we can add to our forms. And we just have to kind of scroll through and let our mouse hover over, and then when we see the control we want to use, and in this case we want to use button, so it's the box with the 4 X's in it, click it and nothing happens immediately. We actually have to scroll over to our form and then find the location where we want to insert the button, and then we can click and it will be inserted. So it tells us we want to display it in the lower right corner. So I'm going to put it maybe like on the 3-inch mark in the lower right corner. Now we get this command button wizard that helps us decide how to set up this button. And we have different categories. We have record navigation, record operations, form operations, and with each one of these categories there's different actions that we can complete. So we actually want to add a new record. So for the record operations, we want that to be our category, and the action is add new record. And we'll just click next. And now this step allows us to choose if we want to have a picture or if we want to use text to identify what this button does. And in this case we want to use text, and we want to use the text save and new. So this identifies to whomever's entering records that they can save the record they're on and create a new record just simply by clicking this button. And then we want to click next, and then we want to name this button, and the instruction tells us to name it BTN lowercase, then an uppercase N EW and an uppercase RECORD, and no spaces. So then we can click finish. And now we have this button here. Now if I switch back to form view again, now we have our form. We can enter records here, then we save in new and can advance to our next record. Now I am jumping back to design view because there's still some more tasks we want to complete. So now we want to add the coffee cup image to the right side of the form at the 4.5 inch mark on the horizontal ruler. So here's the 4.5 inch mark on the horizontal ruler. And there's a few different options, or a couple of different options for inserting an image. The first thing I'm going to do, notice that I still have the save and new control highlighted because this is the last thing I was working on. I want to make sure I click off of that because if I go to insert an image, it will try to insert it in this control. So now that I'm off of that, I'm going to navigate back up here to the Form Design Tools, the Design tab, and there is a control for inserting an image. So I'm going over to this very last control, and once I click it, again, my mouse changes and then I can navigate to the location, and the instructions said we want to put it at the 4.5 inch mark. So even though the detailed section doesn't go over to the 4.5 inch mark, if I insert my image here, it should automatically widen for us. So I'll click, and now I have to navigate to the location where I saved that file. And I think I put it on my desktop. And I want to click on my coffee cup image, and it inserted it for me. Notice I'm at the 4.5 inch mark, and my detail section did widen to accommodate that image. Okay, it tells us do not add the image to the image gallery. Because we used a control to insert the image, it really didn't give us that option. If we had used the insert image tool here, I think it would have added it to the gallery. So I don't think we have to do anything with the next part of step D. We can move on to step E. So we want to change the form title in the form header to add new products. So right now the form title is products. So we want to click, I put my insertion point in front of products. So I want to do add new, and don't forget to remove that S on the end of products. You will get that step wrong if you leave that S on there. All right, and now we just simply want to save and close the form. So you could, if you go ahead and close it without saving it, you'll get the pop-up, do you want to save the changes, or you can save it first and then close it. All right, we want to add a combo box control to the employees form. So now we need to open the employees form. So I'll go back over to my navigation pane, double click the employees form. And again, it opens in form view. So if we're going to make modifications to it, we pretty likely will need to be in the design view. All right, so it wants us to create a combo box to display values for the employee job titles table. And then we want to place that combo box next to the first name control at the 6 inch mark. So here's our first name control, and we see the 6 inch mark is here. So now we want to find that combo box. So again, we want to be at the Form Design Tools tab, in the Design tab, and in this Controls group. And we want to look for that combo box. And again, if you just hold your mouse over each icon, it should tell you what that tool is for. So I have found the combo box, and I will click it, and again my mouse pointer changes when I move my pointer into the detail section. So I want to be next to the first name, and I want to be at the 6 inch mark on the horizontal ruler. So I'm going to click there. And again, I get this combo box wizard that's going to help me set this combo box up. So it wants us to include all the fields from the employee job titles table. So it says the wizard creates a combo box which displays a list of values you can choose from. How do you want your combo box to get these values? So I want the combo box to get the values from another table or query. I will type in the list of values or find a record on my form based on the value I selected in my combo box. So I'm going with the first one. I want the combo box to get the values from another table because our instructions tells us we want to use the fields from the employee job titles table. So I'll click next. Now I have a list of tables to choose from, and the very first one happens to be the not the right one. We want to make sure we select employee job titles, not customer job titles. And then we can click next. And it shows us a list of available fields in that table, and it says it says to include all fields. So we could move these over individually, or if we click on these two arrows, that moves all of the fields over. So we want to select both of those, and now we can click next. And it wants us to sort the values in ascending order by employee job title. So I'll find employee job title in my list of fields, and by default it's ascending, and now I can click next. And it kind of gives us a quick view of what this looks like. And it says, how wide would you like your columns in the combo box? And so you can adjust it by clicking on it, or you can do a auto fit, and we're going to modify it. We're going to widen them just by doing the auto fit. So when you put your pointer between the first and second column, you get that vertical line with the horizontal arrow. Just double click and that'll automatically resize it to fit the contents. And then it also tells us we want to hide the primary key field. Well, this on mine, it was checked by default. If it's not checked on yours, make sure you check it. And then we want to sort the value in the existing field, employee job title ID. So I'm going to click next. And let's see, Microsoft Access can store the selected value from your combo box in the database or remember a value, so you can use it later to perform a task. When you select a value in your combo box, what do you want Access to do with it? And since the instructions tells us that we want to store the value in the existing field, we want to make sure we click the radio button for store that value in this field, and then in the drop-down list, we want to find the employee job title ID field, and then we want to click next. And here we can name it, and we want to call this job title. But notice that it said combo 19, so that'll come into play later. So just kind of remember that in the back of your mind. And yours may be combo 10. It may not be 19. It may be a different number. All right, we want to make the combo box control wide enough to display all the job titles by extending the control to the left to the 5.5 inch mark on the horizontal ruler. So I want to click finish first. And then I want to extend the control to the left to the 5.5 inch mark. So this is the control here, the one that's highlighted in yellow. And I want to let my mouse change to the vertical arrow, or I'm sorry, the horizontal arrow. And then I can click and I can drag that text box or that control box over to the 5.5 inch mark. All right. So now we want to modify the tab order on the employee's form so that the job title combo box comes after first name control in the tab order. So again, we want to be on the Form Design Tools Design tab. And if we scroll over to the tools again, this time we want to see the tab order. So I'll click tab order. And remember, I told you to remember combo 19. Well, although we named this control job title, in this list, in the tab order list, it's still combo 19. So we want to move the combo 19. And again, yours may be a different number at the end, but it should be combo and then some number. We want to select it, so we click on it to select it, and we want to move that up into after the first name. So Once I have it selected, I can click and hold and I can drag it up and I can just drop it beneath that first name. And that has reordered the tab order. And basically what that does is when you're entering records, as you hit the tab key, it advances you to the next field. So when the person that's entering data into this form, first they'll go to employee ID, then last name, then first name, then the next one they'll go to is job title. So each time they hit the tab key, this is the order that they'll go to each field. And then we want to just click OK. All right. So step 6, we want to add a title in the form header. So right now we do not see the form header, we just see the detail section. So to add that header, we can come over here. Again, we're still on the Form Design Tools Design tab and in the header and footer group. So we want to add a title, so we can just simply click Title. And this will bring up the form header and the form footer so that we can make changes, modifications, whatever. So it wants us to extend the height of the form header to the 0.25 mark on the vertical ruler. So you can't really see the numbers here, so when you place your mouse at the bottom of the form footer or at the top of the details section, and you get the horizontal line with the vertical arrow, you can click and you can kind of drag down. And now you can see that this, the bigger line on that ruler is the ½ mark. I'm actually going to move mine back up so that it's at the ½ mark, because it goes on to say that you want the header approximately a ½ inch tall. So the that step has kind of confused me a little bit, but we want to add a label control to the form header at the 2½ inch mark on the horizontal ruler. So again, we have the 2½ inch mark here. Well, because we selected title in the header and footer, it's already given us a label control. So the first thing I want to do is the little control to the left of where we can see employee. I'm going to delete that. We don't need that. And then I'm going to move this control that's already in here to the right until I get to the 2½ inch mark on the horizontal ruler. And I'm just going to drop and drag. And I'm also going to resize that. It tells us in the instructions to size the box so it fits the text. So we want to type in employees, which it already says employees. And if yours does not, for whatever reason, type in employees. And we want to modify this title by changing the font to bold. So this time I want to go to the Format Design Tools Format tab. And I want to click bold. And I want to change that font size to 18, which mine says 18 already. And then I also want to change the font color to black. So when I go to font color and in the standard colors group, I want to make sure I select black. And then it tells us to increase the size of the label control so that the entire title is visible. So as long as you can see the word employees, your label control is big enough. If you cannot see employees, you just want to make sure you drag that box over enough so that you can see all of the text. And then we can save and close this form. All right, so I hit the save on the quick access toolbar and I'm closing this form. All right, now we want to add the supplies table as a subform to the bottom of the products form. So if we want to add a subform, we need to open the products form first. So I'll double click it, and again, we're in form view. We want to switch to design view, and we want to add the control for the subform. So again, Form Design Tools, Design tab, and again we want to scroll through here until we see subform. And so I've found it here close to the right edge, and I'll click it, and again once we click it, when we get down in the details section, we find the location where we want to insert it, and doesn't say exactly, I don't think. So I'm going to insert it here at the bottom, and I'm sure we'll have to relocate it. So I'm adding it, and again, we get this subform wizard, which is really nice. It kind of makes this a smooth tool, or it's a smooth way to add these controls. So we want to add the fields supplier ID, company, contact name, contact last name, and phone in that order. So we want to use existing tables and queries, and we want to use the table suppliers. So I'm going to select, we want to stick with use existing tables and forms and click next. Now we'll choose the table on the second step, and we want to choose the suppliers table. And now we can choose the fields. So remember, if we use the 2 arrows, that selects all fields, but this time we don't want to select all fields, so we do want to use supplier ID, we want to use company, we want to use contact first name. So we want to do it in this order. So we want to contact first name, then we want contact last name. That's a little trick there. And then we want the phone number. And, then it goes on to say in that order. And it wants us to show records in the suppliers table for each record in the products table. So we want to click next. And on this step, it's already in here for us. It wants us to show records in the supplier table for each record in the products table. So show suppliers for each records in the products using supplier ID. And that's what our instructions tells us we want to see. So we can go ahead and click next. And then it says accept the suggested name. So we don't need to change this name. We want to go with supplier subform. So we want to click finish. And now we have a form with a subform in it. All right, so it wants us to extend the form details section to 7.5 inch mark on the horizontal ruler. So this is our details section. And right now it's a little past the 5 inch mark, and we want to change that to the 7.5 inch mark. And then we also want to extend the subcontrol form to the same width. So my subcontrol is selected. It has that orange, yellow-orange box around it. So when I click over here and I get that horizontal ruler, I'm going to just move it over to 7.5 as well. All right. Now we want to modify the subform properties to hide the navigation button. So we actually want to click this this box in the upper left corner, because when we look at the supplier subform, when we have the whole subform selected with just the selection outline, we don't have all of the properties visible. So if we click on this box in the upper left corner, then we have more properties. So like the first form, now we can see the navigation buttons. So if we click on that drop down box, we can select no. And then it wants us to switch to layout view. So we can go back to the home tab, switch our view, and we've been using form view or design view. This time we want to go to layout view. And again, you shouldn't see those navigation buttons down here, and you should only be, navigating through data entry. All right, and then it tells us after we switch to layout view, adjust the column width of each of the columns in the subform to auto fit the content. So here's our subform here, and we can just double click on each column to auto fit. What you may have to do to resize the phone column is let your mouse hover over the right edge and then just kind of drag that over. And now you can get to the right edge of that column, double click, and then you can drag this back. And notice you'll get some markings. I think this must have been where I had it before. and you want to just stop back where you had that marking. Okay, now we want to save and close any open database objects. So I'm going to click the Save button on the Quick Access toolbar. I'm closing this form. Now we want to create a navigation form to organize the database forms. So a navigation form actually just will take all of your forms and kind of put them in one form together. So anytime we want to add something, typically we would start at with the Create tab, and in the Forms group we have Navigation, and we click on the More options, and we want to choose the one that has horizontal tabs. So this will allow us to drag and drop each of these forms or whichever forms we choose into this navigation form. So we want to choose the Products form, and we're just going to click it and drop it on that tab. We want to do the New Products Data Entry form, drop it on that tab. We want to do the Suppliers form. We want to do the Customers form. And we want to do the Employees form. And it says, hint, remember to use Layout View to add forms to the navigation form tabs. And by default, if you want to just double check this and you look in the views, by default it opens into Layout View. All right, so now that we have all of these forms kind of together on this navigation form, it wants us to save and close the navigation form, and we want to name that form navigation. So I'm just going to click in this name box and just remove form and click OK. So I have that saved. Now I can save my database, close it, and I'm ready to submit this project. So if you have any questions or need additional help, feel free to contact me.